Steaming hot coffee. The steam feels wonderful. Oh. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Meet the. I'm Troy Rawlings, and this is where we get to meet fantabulous folks. And I usually don't date these. I usually try to keep my shows pretty generic. But if you're anywhere in the global vicinity, in this universe of this planet called Earth, you're experiencing April 2020. So you know it's coronavirus, COVID-19, all this stuff, this pandemonium. And we've seen a lot of harsh and a lot of crazy stuff going on. But there are certain industries that keep humanity afloat. The medical industries, our grocery service, our emergency medical people. And for those of you who are quarantined at home, entertainment. So it just makes a lot of sense for us to have one today. And in the next couple episodes, a few episodes, we get dealing with some entertainment folk. And this young man is the movie maker in a different sense, not a producer. He's not a director. And we were talking earlier, he had me cracking up. He said, Troy, I don't have all these other talents. This is what I do. This young man is the one who helps you organize and puts together the plans for you to find out and to acquire the money to make the entertainment. There's a formula to this thing. And our guest, without further ado, Mr. Mike Burkenbine. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you, Troy?
I'm good. I'm glad we linked up on. Big shout out to LinkedIn, and we talked there, and I felt like I had seen you before, but we had connected and we talked there, and an hour and a half later, well, about 15 minutes in, I probably said, Mike, I got to interview you today. He's like, Troy, I'm in the house, I'm working, but that's the great thing about Meet the. We can go right where you are, real time. And you have so much information, a wealth of information for people. Many people I know in the industry who are all asking the same question, most of which think, okay, I have this great idea, or they're past that. I have so many friends that are past that point. They have the screenplay, they have connections, but they're having a problem connecting. So let's go back. Let's go all the way back. Where are you originally from, Mike?
I was born in Michigan and grew up in North Carolina, and I've been out here in California for 20 plus years now.
Okay. All right. East Coast. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Moved out here to California. I haven't done 20 yet. So, So what made you, how did you get in this part of the business, I'll say? How did you get into entertainment the way you are? Did you have an idea you'd be heading in that route? What's your background? How'd you get into entertainment?
So I'm a market research and consumer behavior and sales planning guy, and I did it for real estate developers. I performed those same services for Kellogg's, and then I went to work for a big marketing research firm called Nielsen, and I did the same kind of calculations and projections for Nestle and Dole and other consumer packaged goods companies. And then one day we had an idea that feature films might do well if we could calculate what the revenue would be for home entertainment. And it was fairly new at the time, still multi-billion dollars, but there was no system that could track the sales of every single title that was out there being sold at Walmart and Kmart and Target and Best Buy and those sorts of companies. So I built that original system. It's called VideoScan, and that was the impetus for the start of Nielsen Entertainment. And that is potentially the most important research firm in the entertainment business as far as syndicated research.
Right. Now I knew about Nielsen for television, and people some of you may have, back in the day, I think it was a Nielsen box they had, or they went and they gave you polls, and I think before the box it probably was polls, but I didn't know Nielsen covered all entertainment, movies and everything. So So you're working for Nielsen, and how did you come up with VideoScan?
So the basis of the system, the software and the hardware existed because that was already being utilized for basically everything sold in grocery and drug stores. So it was already being done. They just didn't have a category for home entertainment. And so I built that database and implemented it at Disney. So for 3.5 years, they had the exclusivity on the system. And once I was there, acquisitions and green lighting, sales forecasting and projections for all their films that were coming out on home entertainment came across my desk. And so I would say, this film is going to generate X amount of dollars in home entertainment sales over this period of time. And then the finance people would plug that in and say, okay, is this movie profitable or not? Or the people that were at Cannes Film Festival or one of the other film festivals would call and say, hey, we're thinking about buying this movie. What will it do in home entertainment? And so I would be able to look through the database, find comparable titles, similar titles, and say, well, these titles did this amount. I project this particular film. If you acquired it, we would be able to generate X amount of dollars for home entertainment. And then we expanded the database out and bought EDI, which is the worldwide tracking service for theatrical. We bought the television ratings back. We bought a bunch of other things. And now the database has all revenue and expenses, including production costs and marketing costs. And these things are actually verified by the producers or by the distributors. So with this system, I can tell you the profitability of just about any film that is out there and has been released.
Now we talked earlier, and you mentioned something key for those, and we're going to get right in. This is meat, so we go right into the meat and potatoes of it all. But you mentioned something very key for filmmakers, producers, even if they're veteran filmmakers and producers, and maybe bumping their head. It's certain things they may not realize about the industry. You start talking about what major companies look to produce, how big budget and what kind of films they look to produce, and what films they look to distribute if it's beneficial to them. Now, some people may not know that run. So what's the difference between the two, or where's the spectrum for those that say, okay, I'd love to just pitch it to a big company in it. What's the spectrum of what major companies are actually producing nowadays?
So it's more varied now than it's ever been because production costs have basically gone down and people get Red cameras for Christmas and stuff like that. So it's not like you have this big, gigantic 35 millimeter, camera on a tripod. It's something that you can put under a Christmas tree. And so more and more films are being produced, from an independent perspective. And at the same time, the studios are more focusing on the big tentpole films, the films that cost $100, $200, $300 million. So
now you mentioned that before. You mentioned that name before, tent pole. Why do they call them tent pole films?
Because those films are very expensive to produce. They have lots of effects, generally speaking, and lots of dollars spent on them for marketing. And so with that, the studios have power to be able to push other films into theaters and on the shelves at Walmart and that sort of thing. So they call it a tent pole because that's the pole that covers lots of other films that they want to distribute. And they're basically distributors, right? The studios are distributors. That's what they do.
Right. Okay, so you come on board, and for most companies that you've seen, you said there's a small amount of movies that get pitched that actually get produced in the industry.
The last number I read was 0.3% of screenplays written actually get made into a feature film and see the light of day. 0.3. And part of the reason, some of the scripts aren't very good. for whatever reason, or they're just not timely or popular styles. But the big thing that I found that producers are missing is the financial portion that we've been talking about. With that financial analysis and projections, everybody involved can get an idea of what the film will provide to them. So when the studios do these analysis, they look at everything. How much will it cost to produce? How much will it cost to market? You know, what kind of distribution fees will we get? What are we paying the actors? What are the product placement revenue off of it? You know, is there co-marketing available? You know, how many screens should we put it in? All those things are all analyzed to try to determine if a film is going to be profitable or not. But the independent film producer doesn't have access to all the data and the expertise to be able to forecast this stuff. And that's how I help, because I have built a system for independent producers to provide a financial plan, a distribution plan, a marketing plan for independent films that rivals what the studios provide. And then these independent producers can show it to a studio and say, here's what the plan is for the movie, and they can determine whether or not they want to distribute it. The producers can show it to an investor, and the investor gets a clear idea of what the numbers are, how many people have their fingers in that pie before they get their money back, how much money they're projected to get back, what their interest rate is, what percentage of profits they'll get. The producer can show it to actors, their managers and agents, and it'll show their salary plus here's 5 points for being in my movie, and here's how much those 5 points are worth. The producer can show this to a P&A fund and say, here's how much money we need to market this particular film. We show it to the distributor, and the distributor might come back and say, okay, we'll take it and we'll put it in 300 screens. And the producer can show, look, other films like this were in 500 screens. That looks like the optimal amount. Why are you only putting it in 3? And they may have a good reason. They're very smart people, but that gives the producer something to work off of. And then if the distributor says, well, we're going to spend $1 million on marketing, like, well, all other films like this got $3 million to maximize revenue, and they were profitable, or some of them were. Why are we spending less? And there's also numbers where we can show theatrical revenue, video revenue, television revenue, streaming revenue, and there's places to plug in merchandising revenue, hats and t-shirts and stuff like that, and music revenue if there is going to be any. So I add up all the revenues, and I start subtracting out all the costs. You know, what the theater chains cost, you know, what their cut is, what the distribution fee is, how much the P&A people want an interest rate, you know, how much is going to, you know, gross, you know, how much PGA and DGA and, you know, SAG-AFTRA, what do they want? You know, what are they going to take out of this? And then what's left comes to the production company. And then once it's in the production company, it's like, well, how does that money get allocated, or what we call the waterfall of money? X percent goes to this person, X number of dollars goes to this person. And I work it all the way down so that the total revenue for the basically the life of the film is all allocated, and everybody with a finger in their, you know, finger in this pie says, oh, here's what I'm projected to make off of it. And that is the thing that takes people from 0.3% being funded to what my current success rate is. 30% of my clients get funded. Last year, I helped raise $30 million for feature films that are either in production or being released or have been released.
And that was last year alone?
That was just 2019, yes.
So how long have you been doing your film funding plans for people in the industry?
So I've been doing this work for about 3 years. Prior to that, I was doing similar work for companies tangentially related to entertainment. And prior to that, 10 years for the major studios. I was a consultant on site at Disney, Warner, and Universal, and a full-time employee at Sony, and then vice president of the precursor first look, Ventura Distribution, which was the biggest distributor of independent films in the world at the time. And I was vice president over there for a couple of years before they sold to another company. So this sort of work I've been doing, I mean, I did this work for Batman and Robin and Men in Black and, Academy Award, tens of billions of dollars worth of films, both greenlit and acquired.
So that's pretty, to have, out of 10 clients, to have 3 clients that you get upwards funding of upwards on a let's say a low basis, it might be more than that, but 10 clients, 3 out of 10, you get upwards of $30 million of funding. Your company, this part of your company, 3 years, and in 1 year you get that that's pretty impressive. and that's really coming from a planning perspective, helping people, because in your opinion, because I know you play doctor sometimes. I know by the time you get to people, they're like, well, 15 people have turned me down. He's like, well, I wish you could go back to all of them, take them this. Is it better to get with someone who's, okay, you just finished your screenplay. Let's sit down and do your your film funding plan. And because I think that would give people a much better go at the business side, and like I mentioned Donald Passman's book years ago, This Business Called Music. Maybe you need to write a book called This Business Called Film. because when you were telling me the things that go into it, I was like, my mind wasn't blown because it all made sense. And when you think about it, all the things are covered, but you don't see that. People are thinking about getting a line producer to work with the budget they have, but they never think about where's your budget that had the line producer's budget in there, all the way down to how much revenue can be made off your merchandise. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and so the biggest complaint I have from my clients is this. They send us, they get permission to send a script or synopsis over, and whoever's evaluating it reads it, and they like the script. Then they go into pitch, and 75 to 95% of their time is spent on my financial plan. I'm like, Mike, they didn't even look at they've already decided they like the script. They want to know what the financial plan is. So if you go in without one, you're asking them to calculate all this stuff on your behalf. And they may not do it right. They may not have the vision that you have for your film, right? And they may pull wrong data or do something different than what you plan, and it makes your film look bad. This gives you the power to dictate how they look at the film, at least initially, and gives you arguing points for saying this is what should be done for it, or why they should take it, why they should invest it in or distribute it or act in it or direct it or whatever it is they're looking for. And so it puts power back in these independent producers. Otherwise, you walk into a pitch meeting and you pitch, and that's interesting, and then you just throw a script on the table and walk out the door. Like, they're sitting there. I've been in tons of those meetings, like, okay, we have to figure out who's going to star in it, how much is the budget going to be, what do we think the revenue is going to be like, when should we release it, all those sorts of questions that could be answered, by the producer or the writer, whoever it is that's doing the pitching, in advance. They know their project, they know the product, they know the film. They're just not putting it down on paper. And I listen to what they say about their vision for the film, and I put it in numbers so that the finance guys, when they get a hold of it, they know what the plan is. Now, they can revise it, and they do lots of times, but at least it gives them a foundation of where to start.
So it's awesome. And for those, definitely before Mike gets out of here, we'll get all this information. We'll have it below in the link and the other links on IGTV, YouTube. You can definitely reach out to him. So that you said something so key. 75 to 90%, somewhere around there, maybe more, of the time is, because it makes sense, because if they're asking for a meeting, that means they already read it, they already like the idea. Right. So listen up, everybody. If you get the meeting and you've already sent them your stuff, that means that 9 times out of 10, they already read it and they already like the idea. So the rest of the time, they're looking to see where the plan lies. Right. And better yet, when they bring you in, it's really for what you want. But what you want has to be associated with the plan.
Right.
Like,
right. And
what
so I
people
listen to the
what you want.
filmmakers. Right. I listen to the filmmakers of what their vision for it is, and I put it in a financial plan. And there's usually, a paragraph written about distribution and marketing and all those sorts of things that go along with it. And who do you want to star in it? Because if you put an A+ star in it, that's gonna affect the budget. And so
Right.
all this stuff comes together. And yeah, the production companies or the producers or whoever it is may do this, but you get a running start ahead of everybody else. Like if you have two projects, if we had two projects and we were evaluating and they both looked good and one was well developed, had a financial plan, had a marketing and distribution plan to come from, we didn't have to start from a dead stop and try to figure out everything about a film where we've only read the script once. That takes weeks, sometimes months to get that together. And the producers and writers already know these things in their head. The distributors and the investors and the P&A funds, they want that presented to them to give them an idea of what it is, right? Is the budget 5 million or 50 million? Do you want a TV star or do you want a big, silver screen star? Are you going to film in Georgia where they have great tax credits? Or are you going to film in Wyoming?
Right.
What does the financial structure of this thing look like? How much money do we actually need to put into it? I'm telling you, most producers, unless they've been in the business a while and are experienced, come in and they don't really know the answer to that question. How much can be debt? How much is equity? What do the tax credits look like? Can we do pre-sales internationally? All those things are things that production companies, investors are asking these questions. And if you don't know them, you can't calculate it on the fly. I can't even do that. And I've been doing this for 20 years. You have to do it in advance and be prepared.
Awesome. So it's I would tell clients and talk to people, I say, know your number, know your number. You've put it in a whole nother aspect. Know your numbers. And it is your job. Just like you can read and know your script and know everything and do your pitch. If this is real to you, you should know your numbers. And I want to say this because I know this for a fact. We said 30%. So you're like, oh man, that's kind of, well, I don't know the average on that. But how many people have you seen in the years of doing this, working with clients? How many clients came on board with gun ho and quit in the process?
Lots. They do because they hit a wall and they don't know why. They're like, what's wrong? Why are people, I get interest from the script, but there's nothing past that. Well, that's because sometimes they don't see the vision. They're like, hey, it's a great script. I have no idea what to do with it. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. I don't know if there's a market for this out there. And it's a lot of work for people to actually do that. If you do that work for them, then they can see the vision. So like I said, it's 100-fold between people who don't, the average person out there that has a script or a project to my clients. 100 times more likely. It's still only 30%, but that's pretty darn good in this industry. And then I understand that these are complicated things. So part of what I provide to my clients is I will go to these meetings with them and I'll be with them on the phone, or if it's local, I can go wherever and sit down with the investors or sit down with the distributors. And most of them know who I am. And if they don't know who I am, they certainly know the system that I created, because basically every studio in Hollywood and every major production company uses the system to do what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I do this with the independent guys.
Right. So I've thought it was so key right now more than ever because the world is watching. The world is at home. I talked to being here in Los Angeles and being in the entertainment industry, you probably have people that you have friends and you just talk to on a whim. They could be the multimillionaires, the billionaires, and might know you, might want to just pick up the phone and call you. Hey, how you doing, man? I haven't talked to you in a while. Everybody's in this mode. And I think going into this stage, everybody's looking back at their plans, dusting out their stuff, looking at things. And I tell everyone, this is probably episode 37 of Meet the, but it's for the people in the entertainment industry and those thinking about even getting into screenwriting and doing your own projects. This is one of the most essential pieces that I have ever heard of and it's probably the most detrimental to where you are right now. I talked to people this last week who are working on their projects and they're getting excited about putting it together. Implement this now. Implement it is worth and from the numbers you were telling me earlier, it's the value of what you're giving people for what you're charging them is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. If you really believe in your project, believe in it enough to give it. It's literally breastfeeding your baby or giving the baby formula. It's like you have nothing without the funding. There is going to be no project. And if the studios don't believe, or whoever's going to fund it, because sometimes, like you said, it's independent. So it could be the people that just put up all the money, but if they don't see where everything lays out, it's key. And a lot of the stuff, you're artists, you're a producer, you may not be thinking about it. So make sure you get into, I could talk to Mike for an hour. Mike, before you get out of here, any last things you want to say, and then I'll get your information.
Yeah. So part of what I do for my clients is keep in touch with studios, distributors, television networks, streaming services, all these people I'm talking to on a real regular basis. And I ask, and investors, and I talk to them like, what are you seeing coming down the pike? And what I'm hearing from distributors, whether it's streaming or studios or independent, is they are afraid there is going to be a big gap in the pipeline of product that's coming in. And so they're out there looking for product right now, but they're not in their offices and things are a little bit slow. But, as things ease up, they're going to be in an acquisition mode and a funding mode and a distribution signing mode, because they want to keep that pipeline going. Most of these studios have thousands of employees that they've got to make payroll every month. They've got to have the throughput to make that work. And one of the streaming services recently published, this is available for anybody to see, but their viewership was up 60%. That's 60. Well, that's awesome for them. But the fear then on the other side is, for each demographic, if you're watching 60% more product, you're blowing through the titles and the content that's there. They've got to replace that stuff, or you're going to be bored with what they've got. So they're looking for product. And then investors, when I talk to them, like, hey, a recession's coming. Obviously, we're in it right now. Consumer packaged goods, like stuff you see in the grocery and drugstore, they go down in recessions. Real estate, values go down in recessions. Retail goes down in recessions. But entertainment typically doesn't. Sometimes it actually goes up. And
right.
So investors are now excited about entertainment properties, saying, hey, there's going to be a big demand for it, and it's going to be going up. People are going to want to go to the theaters in a major way, when it's available for that. The streaming stuff, I don't see that going down unless they run out of content. So people with content are going to be a catbird seat, and the investors know that. And as soon as this thing lets up a bit, all this money that's not being invested is going to be placed. And if your film is not ready, then you're going to be at the back of the line. Otherwise, you can be up there right away, and they're like, we're going to fund 5 films. Okay, who's ready to go? That means you've got a business plan with a financial, the script is done, the synopsis, cast wish list, and at least the top sheet of the budget. If you've got those things, you can take any pitch anywhere and get financing, get distribution, talk about the talent. The talent's not working either. They've got mortgages and, all kinds of expenses. They want to go to work too. Some may have been taking some time off. They're going to all want to go back to work. So there's going to be a big demand. So people who are ready to go are going to be in the catbird seat here in the next 6 weeks. And it takes 6 weeks or 8 weeks to build a good business plan and have it be really solid, so that everybody looks at it and says, I see what your plan is. I like it. Let me invest in it or distribute it or star in it.
I say it again. If you are a producer, a future producer, or definitely the producers that are working with screenwriters of your own project, looking to produce your own project. If you have a project, yours or otherwise, there is no more important person than Mike Burkenbine right now, as far as what he has to offer. If you have somebody that's doing it, by all means, take some notes from Mike. I'm sure he does consulting as well. But you need to get on board, people. Remember, and you said something key, because I've just watched, I I'm clearing a whole season of some of this streaming content in 1 or 2 days. You got a day off to veg out for a second for those people that aren't producing stuff every day. Or we may sit back and watch something like, man, that was really good. I literally cleared a season of something in 2 days because this is that time. But coming off of this, he said something so key. I don't want to even go any further. I want you to get in touch with him. 60% viewership up for streaming services. Now, if you think of the probably hundreds of streamings, they're majors, but I'm sure there are going to be hundreds coming off of this season, but they're scared of running out of content. It's one of the best things the industry could hear. Because content creators, you're ready, but you got to be ready. How do they get in touch with you, Mike? How can people get in touch with you?
We can put my email address, on this.
If y'all see me getting a pencil, you know it's serious.
Okay. It's my email address is my last name dot my first name at gmail.com. So that's burkenbine.michael, MICHAEL at gmail.com.
Thank you, most def. And you can find them also on LinkedIn. All you business folks that, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, you need to get in touch with me, and then get in touch with Mike. But we need to get you on your business. LinkedIn is the place to do business. They are doing phenomenal work right now. But Mike Burkenbine, thank you so much, Mike, for taking time out. I know you're busy and you get rest in between. I just happened to catch you at a great day, and we have some other things to talk about, of course. But definitely reach out to Mike, send him an email, tell him you heard about it on the Meet the Show, and start getting some information. Get your stuff together, because you're going to look up and you'll be scratching your head in 2021, 2022 without a project. So thank you, Mike. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.